Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I am back in my original Tier 10 vehicle. Maybe you know this, especially if you watch the stream. I talk about this quite often. It is the E100. Yeah, cliche, I know, the first tank and pretty much the only tank that I really wanted to get when I first started playing the game in closed beta back in 2010 was of course the Tier 7 German heavy tank, the Tiger, which led on to the E100. And so when I got in this vehicle, I really felt that power. Back in the day, when I got this tank in 2011, I think towards the latter part of 2011, it took me about like 5-6 months to get my first Tier 10 tank, because back then I was a complete free-to-play player. I didn't have any Tier 8 premiums. I didn't even run a premium account. I was a student studying for my PhD at the time, and the idea of spending €10 a month on a game like this, it was a great game. I was enjoying it a lot, but if I could play it for free, why wouldn't I? Now, the E100 still has a very warm place in my heart, and when I did get it at the end of 2011, it just felt like absolute power. Now, of course, you had to deal with sneaky IS-7s on the enemy team who would try and get up in your face, and it was very tricky to be able to penetrate them unless you learned that they had some weak points on the side, or alternatively, if you really managed to shoot right down on the upper hull of the IS-7, especially towards where the beak kind of like comes out towards the sides, you can really take advantage of that. And I just loved it. I was really hooked on this tank. And I played it loads in Clan Wars in 2012 when I spent 6 months on the map in pretty much the only clan I've ever actively been in, which is First In, Last Out. Still got lots of friends in there that I usually see at Tank Fest, that kind of like annual meet up, and you reminisce about old times. Or I had an absolute awesome time in that clan, although like 6 years ago now, right? And on the Clan Wars map, back then, the game, you couldn't fire gold rounds without gold. You actually physically had to load gold into the tank to be able to afford to buy those premium rounds of ammunition. But of course, on the Clan Wars map, and I think it's still maybe the case, I don't know, I'm really out of touch, that you got gold as a reward for owning territory on the map. And so this gold was handed out to members of the clan at the end of the month, and then you spent it on premium rounds to be able to fire them, gold rounds. Premium rounds, gold rounds, whatever. I should really make a whole video where I talk about why I still call them gold rounds. And not premium rounds in the game, but that's for another story. But you used to fire those gold rounds inside your Clan Wars battles to be able to gain an advantage, and when you dabbed the 2 key in the E100 back in the day, you used to up the penetration from, I think it was 230 back then. They recently buffed, well not recently, in the last few years they buffed it up to 246, up to 334, and that just allowed you to gain a huge advantage, which you kind of needed in Clan Wars, and the clans that spent the gold made more gold because they held larger parts of the map. But the E100, it's not 2012 anymore, it's 2018. But whenever I play this vehicle, I still seem to have solid games in it. Now, why is that? It's because of the alpha. 750 alpha damage and decent penetration on the standard rounds of 246 is more than enough to really be competitive, especially in a +2. Actually, sorry, this isn't a +2 matchup, this is a +1 matchup. I feel really comfortable using the 246 on this tank, and especially when you've got that 550mm caliber shell, you can overmatch plates of the enemy vehicles that they otherwise wouldn't really think about. I don't know what he was thinking. Off with his head! 705, goodbye. Maybe he was thinking why the Type 4 Heavy and the E75 weren't coming to back him up, or maybe he was just locked down in the tracks from my allies towards my southwest of my position. But I just feel that this is a good moment to talk about the E100 as well. Look at that, right through the side of the Super Conqueror. Get wrecked, mate. Because I just unlocked the last Tier 10 tank that's currently in the game, and Wargaming haven't really talked about any of the wheeled vehicles that will be coming in, that French light tank line that I kind of revealed at Gamescom. Just this year, a few months ago. We haven't. Oh, I'm really sorry, Type 4 Heavy. I saw him too late that he was going to squash the T10. I feel really bad about that. Denied. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Type 4 Heavy. I'm going to give him an apology. What was his name? Let's see. Friends, I'm really sorry, buddy. If you watch this video, I didn't see you until it was too late, mate. Was that an AP round right through the side of the Type 4 Heavy? I'm loving it. I didn't really see. Yeah, it must have been an AP round because it did 641 damage. I don't think I loaded the gold, but maybe I did. I feel like I started out with 17 rounds of AP, 17 rounds of heat, and then I think 16 rounds of high explosive, but I'm not 100% certain. The ammo capacity in this vehicle is 50, so yeah, 17 plus 17 plus 6, yeah, that adds up. I think that's what I started with. And people always ask me, why do you take so much HE in this tank? Well, that's because this vehicle has more than enough ammunition to kill pretty much the entirety of the enemy team with any one of its ammo types. 37,500 potential damage if you penetrate all of the 50 shells of this vehicle. Yeah, kill the entirety of the enemy team. I think the highest damage I've ever seen in World of Tanks, even against an entire team that was AFK, was like 17,000, so that's half of that. You can afford to bounce or just splash your shells for half damage and still hit the record of all time in World of Tanks. And so it's great. You've got enough AP for when you're in a good matchup. You've got enough heat for when there's a platoon of mouse on the enemy team who are playing really well and you just want to penetrate their cheeks again and again. Or if you just want to shoot at Type 5 heavies. And then you've got your high explosive rounds for when you have to deal with those hull down vehicles. I love spanking high explosive rounds at Super Conquerors, for example, in the turret. You can hit the top of the tank. It is rather nice indeed. But yeah, the E100. I keep getting distracted a little bit by just this. This game was action-packed so far, and it's still pretty close. Well, it's just not too close at the end here. We've got kind of like 6 tanks on the enemy team to dig out, but I was more happy about the fact that I picked up 5 kills and a decent amount of damage in the E100, and I was going to try and go for the Top Gun. But yes, as I was saying, I just unlocked the last tier 10 tank in my collection, which was the 60 TP, the Polish tier 10 heavy. And that's really the first tank at tier 10 that's directly competed with the playstyle of the E100, i.e. having 750 alpha damage, being a super heavy tank that the 60 TP is. But the 60 TP arguably just does it all a little bit better, especially against premium ammunition fired at the turret. Everybody knows the E100's weakness is that the turret is not that thick. It's like 240, 250 millimeters of turret armor as far as I can remember. Yeah, 250 millimeters of turret armor. They did buff that up from about 230 or 240, I think, back in the day. And so heat rounds towards the front of this vehicle, if you're not angling the turret, and sometimes even if you do, will be able to go through it very easily indeed. But that doesn't happen on the 60 TP, and so the 60 TP, with its one extra degree of gun depression, does better in those hold down scenarios. But I've played the 60 TP a lot recently, and while I've had some really good games in the tank, this is one of the first games I played in the E100 as of late, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Watch this. Now this is one of the best things about this tank. Look at this. I just ricocheted, I think, an entire magazine, or at least 3 rounds out of the 4 magazine of premium ammunition from the TVP there. And why did I do that? That's because the E100 has ridiculous side armor. You see this spacing, this area, this kind of like flap that comes over the hull? That is 40 millimeters of spaced armor, I believe, as well as the tracks. Well, actually, I better just triple check on the 3D model here to make sure I'm not telling a lie. Actually, this is 60 millimeters of spaced armor over this part, and the tracks are 40. That's ridiculous. So the whole of the upper part of the vehicle here is 60 millimeters of spaced armor, and then behind that, we have 120 millimeters of hull armor, and the tracks count as 40 millimeters. And so this vehicle is just wonderful for when you do get caught out in the side. The heat rounds get absorbed by the spaced armor, high explosive rounds will be massively mitigated, and even armor-piercing rounds from lower-tier tanks or just vehicles that have poor penetration on their standard rounds like tier 10 light tanks will probably not be able to go through consistently. Oh yes, goodbye WTF Panzer IV. And that's something that I have not been feeling with the 60 TP. The side armor on the tank is garbage, and every time I get hit in the side with its 20 millimeters of track protection, not the 40 millimeters that the tracks are protecting on your E100, you just lose your hit points so much in the 60 TP. But of course, I would far rather be in a 60 TP if I was in a hull down scenario. I've also got a tiny little bit of better rate of fire. But believe it or not, the E100 actually has the slightly better aim time and a tiny little advantage with regards to its dispersion of its turret when it's moving. Now, I think that's good, because I thought when I got the 60 TP it was frankly just going to be an E100 replacement. So when I played this game of World of Tanks, and I went back to the first ever tier 10 tank that I unlocked, which is very similar to the last tier 10 tank, well, the latest tier 10 tank that I just unlocked, and it would make me very happy to feel that the tank isn't irrelevant. There were very few vehicles in the game, I think, that even with the power creep and the new tier 10 tanks, I'm not saying that they're going to be the WZ-111-5A, or even they're going to be the Object 277 at tier 10, like they used to be. I'm looking at you, IS-4. But the E100, I'm not sure if it's just because it's got a warm, fuzzy place in my heart as my first tier 10 tank. it still rocks and rolls. So while we do get an ace tanker in the E100, I'm very surprised at how low the base experience requirement is in the E100 to be able to get an ace. 1,158 on only 4,000 damage in a tier 10 heavy, albeit 7 kills to get an ace, shows you the community are but just not playing this vehicle very well. And while it's clear that the E100 is not performing as well, at least with regards to win ratio on the European server, as the WZ111 5A at over 52%, or even the 60 TP at just over 52, although I would say this is because only the more experienced players who have bothered to grind up towards the 60 TP will have that tank, which usually skews the statistics. A tank needs to be well released inside the community for at least probably 6 months before you start to see its win ratio plateau. But even a vehicle like the Maus, the Kranvang, or the Super Conqueror is only really packing 1% victories more than the E100. And believe it or not, the IS-7 is at the bottom. And I think this vehicle personally is very strong. But again, I think it's because a lot of new players are playing the E100 and the IS-7 because it's usually one of the first vehicles you pick up, right? Nevertheless, a great free-to-play game in the E100 here. Only 12,000 credits spent on our 10 rounds of ammunition, of which we hit every shell. I call that a 10 out of 10 replay. And while I don't think this thing is the most competitive tank in the game, I wouldn't pick it if I had to go into a 1v1 situation and my life depended on it. It's my first tier 10. And so for me, the E100 will always be kick-ass. But ladies and gents, let me know in the comments down below, what was your first tier 10? And do you still love it or do you loathe it? And if you've enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you've hated it, on the other hand, give it a thumbs down. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic and hopefully I'll see you soon.